I spent 2 months hiking around the Himalayas in Nepal, doing some mission work over there, and I would go out and give people Bibles. Well, technically, I sold people Bibles. Initially, I thought, why am I selling people these Bibles? I should be giving it to them. Well, interestingly, people tend to appreciate items a lot more if they exchange money for them. And so really it wasn't a lot. It was barely anything that we'd charge for these Bibles. But that meant that these people would actually treasure this book that they purchased and wouldn't use it as toilet paper. But it was so exciting being in a country that, well, technically wasn't supposed to have some Christian missionaries. I was there to tour. Oh wow, it was so crazy because in Kathmandu, on virtually every street corner there was a machine gun nest, and there was army personnel everywhere. It was so eerie because Kathmandu, as it turns out, was the only city the government really had control over. The rest of the region was controlled by Maoists. Their name is derived from Mao, the famous communist leader, and they in fact were communists. And so they did not like Christians one bit, let alone the entire country was officially officially a Hindu kingdom. Like very, very few countries out there are actually Hindu kingdoms. As a matter of fact, I think they're the only one. But it was so cool going out and just asking people if they wanted a Bible, because it was pretty dangerous to do this. But God was there, and when you put yourself out of your comfort zone, you see some miracles start slipping into place. Because when you're out of your comfort zone, you can't rely off of yourself, off of your own wit and wisdom and personality or skills. Nope. You gotta just be like, okay, God, there's a guy standing in front of me with a gun. I don't know if he's going to shoot me, but let's see what happens when I ask him if he wants a Bible. Yeah, it was so awesome. And I'm not kidding. There was several times, one moment in particular, because I remember the gun that this kid had was like a homemade revolver, and it was so sketchy looking. It probably would have exploded on him had he tried to pull the trigger, but I wasn't going to try anything here. But they detained us for quite a while and brought us into a very, very dark room and talked for a long time about how, they really just wanted to talk about themselves. And they were real people, and we treated them like real people. And a matter of fact, more often than not, these communists actually bought literature from us. It was so neat. We'd go out on these 2-week treks at a time, go out in different regions. I went everywhere in Nepal, from the north to the south. I even got to the point of crossing the border into India. So technically, I was in India, though it was for about 15 minutes. But I was in India. The tea was delicious. I just love the sweet tea, and they kind of put pepper in it, so it's almost sort of spicy. Oh, it's so good. And you're out in the middle of nowhere. Very few people there have ever seen a white person in real life. They've probably seen like movie posters here and there, but in actually real life, imagine that. Never seen a white dude. So I get a lot of people asking if I'd like to come into their house and just sit on the couch and just talk. Very, very friendly people from village to village. Not all the people were friendly. Very, very interesting to observe the different spiritual climates from village to village. Usually I just think, yeah, whatever, everybody's an individual. They can speak for themselves. No. When you walked into certain villages, it was just dark. And not just one or two people, but everybody was just just had a very ugly demeanor about them. Not nice people at all. And yet in other villages, they just welcomed you with open arms. Very interesting. I know what Jesus is talking about now when he's like, you know, you're going to go from village to village and people are going to be like, ha, screw you. And you just shake your dust off your sandals and move on. By the way, I don't think Jesus actually said those words, but probably the equivalent. But I digress. Some of the Christians there in Nepal were the most hospitable, wonderful, loving Christians I have ever met in my whole life. To the point where they would spend so much money just on little frivolous things just to make you comfortable. And no matter how much you tried to insist, like, no, I'm not hungry, I'm not thirsty. Like 5 other people just offered me tea. But these people would go above and beyond to sacrifice for you. Just incredible. And very, very poor people also. Barely living off the land. And yet you'd walk in and they'd say, this is one example, would you like an egg? A little bit of translation lost here. I was like, no, thank you. No, thank you. I'm okay. Me too, cha. And they'd be like, oh, do you like egg? As in, like, maybe you just don't like it. I'm like, oh no, I like egg. And then before I could, expound on what I meant by what I like about eggs, they'd be gone. And then in 5 minutes, would walk a little boy with a fried egg in a little bit of soup. And I was just like, thanks, all right. And of course, it's hugely offensive if you deny them food that they're giving you for free. I mean, that is so sacrificial of them, especially eggs. Eggs were extremely expensive there. I heard once at one point, a guy was like, oh yeah, chickens are like twice the price of goats. It's like, but a goat is huge. What are you talking about? And he's like, aha, but a chicken gives you eggs for a very, very long time. Smart. So eggs, very, very nice people. At one point, speaking of terrorists, because they were terrorists, totally terrorists. I'm not just like labeling, post 9/11 trauma here. They were in fact terrorists, these Maoists, these people. There were many moments where you'd be driving along the road and you'd see the charred skeleton of a bus. I don't know if anybody died in them, but there were buses being blown up quite frequently, to the extent where if you were driving overnight in a bus of your own, the bus drivers would not go anywhere at night, and they would all congregate together, sort of like a herd of wildebeests. They'd sort of congregate together so that one of them couldn't get picked off and eaten. Yeah, things like that. It was so crazy, which was very frustrating to travel around when you had to stop all night long. But that's okay. Hey, I'd much rather stop and try to sleep under a bus than get blown up. And all these buses were so crowded. This was the first time that I've ever experienced racism. Now bear with me. Some of you be like, oh, you're a white guy. What are you talking about racism? You have no right. No. This was the only time in my life I have ever been offended. I pride myself saying that I have never been offended before in my entire life. But this one time, I was actually offended. Legitimately. To the point where I was angry. You'd show up to the bus stop and you'd negotiate a fare, and they would end up charging you like twice as much because you were white. Because you're probably pretty, probably pretty wealthy. Put 2 and 2 together. White guy from America, probably wealthy. He can afford to pay a little more. And you're like, okay, whatever, you can afford to pay a little more. But when you're there for a long time, this can really stack up. And you're like, come on, man, I just heard you quote this guy over here 100 rupee, and you're charging me 300 rupee. What the heck? We're going to the same place. Really now? Oh man, at some points I just got so angry. And they just kind of blink at you like what? This is business. You're a white guy. This is how it's done. Oh boy. And that's not just Nepal. That's a lot of third world countries where you go and you're a white guy. So some of the business practices were kind of backstabby. But hey, that's how they survived. Yeah. So anyway, terrorists, people. This one fellow, he had long hair, really, really grim looking face. I don't think he smiled once when he stopped us. He was obviously a Maoist. And he insisted that we not go any further, and that he checked our jolas, our bags that were full of books. And he actually invited us to his porch. And he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, me knowing that if I said I was from America, he'd probably call his buddy and he'd show up and shoot me on the spot. But I didn't. I said, "Oh, I am from near Canada." He'd be like, near Canada. Canada! Oh, Canada! We love Canada! Yes! Oh, Canada! Because, Canadians don't do anything. No offense! But, yeah, I just said I was from near Canada. And I did this all the time. And they wouldn't catch the near part. God closed their ears to hearing that part. They just were like, "Oh, Canada, that's cool, we love that." And we talk about Canada. I know nothing about Canada, except they're very nice people there. Even to the point where this fellow with the really long hair and the very grim face, he said, "So what is Canada's national animal?" Do you know what Canada's national animal is? Because I certainly don't. I said, well, the only thing that flashed before my mind was spending time in Alaska doing some more missionary work out in the middle of an Eskimo village. And the little animals in that village were these little rodents, but they were everywhere. I don't know why this stuck in my mind, but I responded with lemmings. The national animal is lemmings. Bad Christian Bo, lied through my teeth. Shouldn't have done that. And he hesitated, paused, and furrowed his brow. And I said, "Do you know what a lemming is?" I said, "Well, that's unfortunate because that's our national animal. It's so cool." Okay. Our national animal is a rhinoceros. Big, powerful animal. Like, oh, whew. Okay, good. I was there with a South Korean friend of mine, and his name was Gome. And Gome was very, very proud of South Korea, and he said, "Ours is a tiger." And so we just had this great, great conversation about countries' national animals. And to this day, I can picture a real Canadian visiting Nepal at some point, and then running into this fellow, and the fellow says, "Where are you from?" And they say, "We are from Canada." And this Maoist quizzes them and says, "What is your national animal?" And the Canadian says, "Well, it's the beaver," which it is, by the way, I came to find out. And he'll say, "Wrong!" And he'll probably kill him. All because of me and my stupid lemmings.